Welcome to Hacking Business Technology, episode 99, the penultimate episode before 100, which feels like a lot of pressure. Welcome, Farah Ramtula and Mr. Matt Hooper.
Thank you, Matt.
Welcome, Baron. Hello.
Oh yeah, I'm Matt Barron, you know. I forget to introduce myself.
You are Matt Barron.
You know, I wonder if in the last 98 episodes how many times we've said this is Matt Barron.
Maybe not that many. It'd be cool to, of course, I always go to the montage. Well, we should cut a montage of every single time that we intro and see what's different. Too much work. Does anybody want to do a bunch of video editing and audio editing?
Yeah. Anybody have complete waste of their life and want to have...
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man.
So we have a really interesting episode today. We're definitely changing the podcast. It's not a massive deal, but hopefully the quality should be better. But we want to really focus on one specific topic, which is tough for all three of us because we live on the internet and attention is not our best friend. So we wanted to really focus this week on change management and just really beat the dead horse as much as possible. When I think of change management, at least recently, when I think of ITSM, actually, I think about change management and config management, like, first. What do you guys think?
I think of cabs
Yes.
and how much I hate them.
Yeah.
The cabs of yesteryear. Don't you mean a digital cab? Virtual cab?
Oh, how I wish. A virtual cab.
Yeah, right. People are still old school. People still meet Thursdays at 3.
Thursdays at 3 with a 550-page document of every single change that they have to go through and be like, it's going to be at 6 o'clock. Is that cool?
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about where change kind of came from. I can't imagine going back to like the 80s or 90s and seeing what change management looks like. I can imagine it being, you know, hey, we're going to add this switch to the network, or hey, we're going to add this hub to the network, and people planning that out and making sure that no one's in the office when they're doing it, and no customers are trying to log in when they're doing it. And they're literally like going in and putting the box in place and plugging all the stuff in, and then closing the change request to be like saying, hey, everything's done.
Yeah, I finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tested to make sure that everything kind of went well.
Well, if you want to see it, Baron, just go to any government organization.
They
Still doing
Happens.
or in some healthcare companies, you know, and it's crazy because when you look at it, like why cabs were originally put in place, it was to stop the hemorrhaging of changes that were uncoordinated, because you'd have these DBAs backing up a database, getting ready to make a major release to a table update, and then you'd have some network guy in the back room going, oh, this is a good time for me to upgrade the network, and be unplugging things and putting in new, management access controllers or whatever. So, you know, the coordination wasn't there, and then, you know, changes weren't being properly tested, so they'd cause incidents. So the CAB was put in place to give some oversight, right, properly to give some oversight to help improve the quality of changes.
Absolutely.
But then as for us, the list got so long that only the top ones got any focus, and all the small, like, easy stuff had to be compiled into a really complex, high-risk change in order to even be reviewed and get pushed through.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of like when it began, it was something as simple as, hey, we need to unplug this or add this or turn this off or restart it or patch it or whatever. And our complexity never really went down. Complexity kept going up without governance changing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think to your point earlier, Matt, when you started on the topic of config management, I mean, let's be honest, January 1st, 2000, everyone's beautifully organized CMDBs went to hell. Right?
Yes. I've often described Y2K as the massive configuration management project that no one ever applied change management to. And so they've just redone it every year since then, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why the analysis takes so long too, because no one goes in. Look at how many organizations are doing change, and they'll say, "Oh, we'll do config later," but their change meetings completely have zero transparency into the underlying assets that are supporting the risk they're trying to evaluate. So you get the wrong people in the meeting with the wrong set of data trying to make decisions, and that's fundamentally part of the problem here with why change is broken.
Absolutely, and I think it's because they continue to do things the way that they've always been doing, just like the monkeys and bananas experiment that was conducted by scientists. Not sure if you guys have heard of that whole story, but
I think you've talked about it on the podcast before.
yeah.
I mean, not last week when we recorded this exact same episode, but earlier. So go through it. I think it's an interesting story.
So essentially, there was a group of scientists. They took these 5 monkeys, put them in a cage, and put bananas in them. So naturally, the monkeys all at the same time decided that they want to go for the bananas. And before they could get to the bananas, they would spray them with water, which, animals don't really necessarily all like being sprayed with water unless you're like an elephant or something. But anyways, so over time, they kept on doing this. So over time, the monkeys stopped going for the bananas. And so when that happened, they took out one of the monkeys and they put a new monkey in. And what do you guys think the new monkey did?
Went for the banana.
Went for
Exactly.
the bananas.
And before he could get to the bananas, all the other monkeys stopped him. And he kept on doing the same thing, and they kept on stopping him. So over time, he never went for the bananas. Then they took another one of those original monkeys out, put a new monkey in, and then, lo and behold, all the monkeys, including that other guy, stopped that monkey from going for the bananas. And before you knew it, all 5 of the original monkeys had been replaced with new monkeys, none of which whoever went for the bananas. But they never even knew why. It was, right? They were doing something just because that's the way it was always done. And I feel like that is one of our biggest barriers to, forget change management, a lot of things, transforming in our organizations.
Yeah, it's culture, it's an abuse cycle. I think I've been in that change meeting where you get sprayed with water for bringing up, for bringing up changes you want to do.
Right. Yeah, I see this in at Landesk. I've seen it in most organizations I've worked for, that people, it's hard sometimes to see the end-to-end picture on things, and I think that's the biggest challenge to why ITIL hasn't gotten the adoption that it was supposed to get, or the success it was supposed to have, is while it did try to paint a broader picture, especially when V3 came out and had the service life cycles, it didn't talk about the real thing, which is like you talked about, Baron. It is change, right? The actual release of the technology is when you actualize the benefit of it. It doesn't do anybody any good to have a project or code or hardware bought or software licenses bought. It's not until it actually gets released that there's any benefit. And people can't fundamentally understand that if that is a project every time we release technology, we've already failed.
Absolutely.
If there's governance every single time that an action has to be taken by an IT person that involves manual effort or manual interaction or a meeting or a phone call or an email, we've already failed.
Yeah, it's that scope of governance. It's fitting what you need in and leaving the rest to just be free.
It just needs to be operationalized. Like it needs to become an activity that it's just part of the normal process, right? It's almost like there used to be cars back in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't see them anymore, but there used to be a bunch of them that when you got into the car, the seatbelt went on you automatically.
Yeah,
I remember
Ford
that.
Tempo.
Yeah.
I had one.
Right.
Until they started strangling you.
That is why they stopped it.
Is that why they stopped it? Yeah.
I think that's a good point that you make, is that there's this level of autonomy that you need to just let happen, and whether that's living in standard change or you're just letting it happen, I think it's obviously up to the culture. A good example would be, you're turning on a new row of cubes. They all need network access. Well, there's no one sitting there. There's no business impact. There's very little risk. Yes, you could go into the network closet and accidentally light up the wrong stuff or accidentally not patch properly. But that's where careful planning comes in for change and understanding the business risk.
Right.
But what you described, Matt, I think it's about trust. I think there's a key factor here. We don't trust each other. It's mind-blowing how many implementations of my clients I've been to where we're talking about their change process, and they want a customization or a feature because they're saying, well, what if this happens and then this would happen and this? I said, well, what if it doesn't? Instead of asking for the customization because you think someone's going to break it, why don't you trust them first before we look for that customization, right? And we over-engineer our processes, and before you know it, you have a change form that has 500 fields on it, takes 45 minutes to populate, and the guy who sits there and is on his console ready to click like go, and he's like, this is going to take me longer than it takes me to actually perform the change. And by the way, if that change goes south, it would still take me less time to go and correct that than it would to be filling out your change form.
I actually experienced this I was doing a consulting engagement for a very large retail bank, and we were tuning their processes, and change management was one of the processes we were tuning. And they were telling me that the committee that was giving oversight to this was saying, our network manager doesn't show up to the change meetings. And we think that that's a real issue. So after sitting on a few change meetings, I didn't see him there, and I went and approached him, and we had a good rapport, and I said, hey, Steve, whatever his name was, why don't you come to the change meeting? He said, Matt, I'm going to sit in a 3-hour change meeting for network issues or network reviews that almost never happen, that I'm fully monitoring in my environment, and if it does break, our average time to repair is like under an hour. So frankly, you want me to waste 3 hours a week to potentially spend an hour a week? I'm going to gamble on my time and focus on the right things. Yeah. And that's hard to argue with, right?
Yeah, and especially, I don't know, it would be better, well, of course it would be easier to approach that situation if you had already seen him fail and fix it quickly, or if you had seen him go through several complex changes, or his team go through several complex changes without failure.
Yeah, or as we approach it now, and most agile service management organizations approach it now, they have collaborative scheduling. Right. Mm-hmm. So when they go in and they want to push an iOS update, or they want to push a software release, or they want to bring a new asset in, they're putting in the intent, and then artificial intelligence and big data is helping them say, hey, you're good to go, flow, or you're not good to go, let's have a conversation, right?
Huh. Oh, that's bloody interesting. I would love to see someone doing that.
Oh, a lot of organizations do that. How do you think Etsy and Netflix and all these guys do? I mean, agile doesn't mean that you're just cowboy and you're just doing random releases without any kind of governance.
Yeah.
You're effectively coordinating and using the analytics. So, agile is one of those terms where you couldn't be more polar opposite than people who say they're agile. The ones who are doing it right thoroughly measure, thoroughly plan, thoroughly utilize controls to make effective and corrective decisions. Others are just
I think that's another big
blow
myth.
it to the wind.
Yeah, it's another big myth buster, right? That continuous delivery or agile and these people that are resisting struggle with the fact that there is a lot of control and a lot of metrics in place when executed correctly, right? And it's fascinating, again, how many people resist that, maybe because of just making those assumptions.
Well, so I love this topic because this is where I see change management going and configuration management going in the future. It's sort of like if you design your system to be changed with lower risk, your speed can increase. Essentially, both your culture and your technology allow changes to happen with less risk because you've designed it that way. Whether it's because you've got redundant networks or multiple servers providing the same service, or you've broken out your services into microservices so that you don't actually have to worry about what's happening downstream or upstream. It's just happening.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix takes that one step further, right? Where they have what they call engineered failure. Mm-hmm. And we know it as chaos monkey. Mm-hmm. But it's this engineering approach that, listen, things are going to break. We know they're going to break. We'd rather validate all the things that we anticipate breaking so that we get one step closer to knowing what we don't know.
Yeah, they're throwing Chaos Monkey at your network, dude, to make sure that he can bring it up in a half hour.
That's right.
But also while minimizing the business risk to that activity.
Right.
That's right.
How much more entertaining would a CAD meeting be if you're saying, so, did you actually test how long that took to fail and how long it took to recover? And if the answer is yes and half an hour, solid. Go do whatever you want. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be such a different conversation than what time is your change? Have you documented all your steps that I see documented here? Are you sure you've documented all your steps? Like, absolutely interesting.
All those bloody Word docs with change plan, change backout plan, it's just too much.
Yeah, they shouldn't be plans. They should be, again, it should be an operational function. Release and rollback are things that should be happening every day in every part of the environment.
That is it. That is it, dude.
Yeah.
If we practiced good change and practice bad change, we'll be better at it.
Absolutely.
And one of the biggest issues is that when you look at some of the waterfall methodology, what I call water fail methodology, is that you have this nirvana-like business requirement that you're building all your requirements to, and then all your testing and validation to, and then your knowledge and support and service level agreements around. Well, first off, that business requirement doesn't actually exist. There is nobody in your organization who knows in this digital economy what's going to happen next. Business is moving too fast and at a speed that no one can predict. No one would have thought that Blockbuster Video would have completely went out of business. And Netflix, who could have been bought by Blockbuster in 2002 for $25 million or $50 million, is now worth $45 billion. No one saw that coming, right? But it was Netflix's willingness to be experiential and learn and test markets and figure out and be fast, right? And Blockbuster, they fired their CEO who wanted to have a digital strategy and brought in the CEO from 7-Eleven, who was known for logistics and knew how to put stores on every corner.
Right.
Crazy to think about that.
Sort of lack of flash foresight. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's the it would be awesome to see. Okay, how much digital transformation did you attempt at Blockbuster? Was IT able to keep up with that change? Were they pushing that change, and then seeing whether the business could adopt it? Beautiful.
Look at Uber. For those of us who've been on Uber for a while, we're now getting this. Hey, do you want Uber to pick up some food for you or deliver food to your house? Not everybody gets that. Uber knows that I am such a loyal customer and I use them so much, they can try new things on me. I'm not going to stop my car service with them if they introduce something stupid. I'll just tell them, well, that's stupid, I don't like it. Or I'll just hit ignore and won't use it, right? So they're going to find out whether this is really something consumers want or not, and then they'll engineer it for robustness and high availability and everything else.
And that is so powerful, right? And I think that's another thing that prevents us from becoming more efficient when we think of change management. We are so used to saying, I need to have everything in order. I need to have my design perfect. I need to have my test plan perfect. I need to spend the time in building and dudes, have you ever just thought of just going with something and seeing how it works? I mean, I love that concept, especially again, if you have developed that trust with your client, right, or your end customer. It is so powerful because now you're delivering features that have actual value and that you can measure the value that you expect to deliver and show for it.
Yeah, when DevOps talks about the three ways, the first way is to understand the flow of work. Like, how does work come into your organization? How does it get done? And then when it talks about the feedback loops, the reason why you need the feedback loops second is if you don't understand how work is coming in, then you don't understand the demand on IT. Once you understand the feedback loop system and how you're going to collect and respond to feedback loop, now you know how to support it. And then you get to the third way, which is then you can become experimental, right? Because now you know where you have systems of record and systems of innovation and all the different variances in between, and what kind of changes are going to be high risk, which ones are just going to be something that were acceptable failures. But if you look at the flow of how most organizations bring ITSM to a certain level of capability, they go completely the opposite way.
Yeah.
How do we support it? And what are the areas of risk that we can support? It's like, dude, you don't even know how work comes in. You get it from your service desk, from project management, from vendors telling you need to update stuff, from executive agendas, emails, phone calls, drive-bys. You don't even know who does what in your organization and why they're doing it. So let's back it up a little bit.
That's interesting. That is how demand management drives release management, drives change management.
Yeah,
Right?
and change, and because change is such a governor and slows everything down from an IT standpoint, well then line of business managers were only forced to go out and acquire cloud services and their own technology, and then IT gets all upset. Oh, this shadow IT. The only person who calls it shadow IT and gives it derogatory terms is IT people.
Yes.
Business people call it getting work done.
Preach.
Amen, brother.
It's digital user experience. It's not IT service management. IT service management is just a way in which we enable the digital user experience. But that's the focus for the digital economy and digital businesses.
You heard it here first on Hacking Business Technology. That was fantastic. Oh man, there's so many tweets in this episode. It's too much. It's way too much.
Next week, that's why we got to tackle request.
There you go.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it'll be a great, because if you look at demand and release and change, request is sort of the next
It's another
obvious
intake
one.
mechanism. Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so I want to leave us with one little thing here that's kind of interesting. I love just little nuggets of things that keep people interested. I found this program on Thingiverse where you can type in two phrases. So you put in two words or two sets of words, and what it does is it'll 3D print your words that you typed. So this one says your business, and then what's awesome is you turn it, and it'll say the other set of words, your process.
That is so cool.
No way. That's so cool.
So it's both words. It's just crazy to look at how one way it says one thing and one way it says the other. Just incredible.
Do they have to be the same
Absolutely
number of
fantastic.
letters?
They don't. They don't have to be the same number of letters.
That is so cool.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll bring something every episode to show at the end.
Awesome.
Love it.
That's it for Hacking Business Technology. Join us on the next episode, episode 100 for request management.
Awesome.
Have a great
Bye,
week,
everybody.
everyone.
See ya.